I don't know why, it doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind, I'm designed to try to explain in due time. All I know, time is a valuable thing. Watch it drop by.
Well, I mean, obviously it was a no-brainer. It is our pleasure to welcome to the stage our 2024 Elevation Award honoree, Wesley Wang. Yo, come on, let's hear it! You serious? Hi, Wesley!
He's my best friend. Yes, I love him.
We have been doing this in some capacity for almost 20 years, and we never before have sat here and done an interview with a former actual participant of the All-American High School Film Festival. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's truly an honor to be here. I never thought I'd be the one speaking here 2 years later. So yeah, thank you all.
So Wesley, give me a sense. You're making this movie. While you were making it, you know, we could talk about the accolades, and it's, you know, the Darren Aronofsky reached out to you and all of this really cool stuff. But you're making the movie we just watched. What was something that you really learned from that experience, or maybe something that was particularly difficult that you were like, okay, when I'm moving forward, I know this is something that I need to get better at, or I need to work on, or that I won't forget?
Yeah, great question. I think in terms of your first thing, like what I learned through this whole process, there's a ton I could say technically about how to get together so many people and get away with no permits and shooting stuff. But I'd say probably grand scheme of like what was really, really important was I remember my high school film teacher, he talked to me after I made a bunch of shorts. I'd made like already like tons and tons of like really low budget stuff, and then I wanted to make something bigger. And he was like, Wesley, like you clearly have the technical skill of like, you know, making this whole thing and getting a bunch of people together, but can you make something that's really personal to you and make something that's really authentic to your voice? Because I feel like I haven't seen enough of you showing yourself on the page like that. So that really resonated with me. I think that's the reason this movie was able to reach so many people.
Just like, it almost sounds simple, but it actually really can make all of the difference. The idea of, you know how to tell a good story, but how do you tell a good story that means something to you?
Yeah.
And that was a game changer.
Yeah, I think I've always stood by this. It's, I think, a really, really underrated quote, but just like writing what you know, because I think
what's more,
writing what you know.
Writing what you know.
Yeah. So, because whatever is personal to you will somehow be personal to someone else. If it's not truthful to you, then I don't think it'll reach as many people.
Love that. So Wesley and I started getting emails from this guy a couple years ago. I still don't know how maybe you can explain it, but what I've learned in getting to know you since you came to the festival is that a lot of this doesn't happen by accident.
Maybe, I don't know.
I've said since you first started bothering me that you have an incredible work ethic, and you really are a hustler, and you don't stop, and you email people, and then you email more people, and then you work on your script, and then you study, and you have this like really, really impressive, inspiring motivation. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because you're sometimes on the more humble side, but kind of walk us through some of the things that you're always doing to try and work harder.
It's funny you mentioned the story of literally 2 years ago, I won like best screenplay here, I think it was, and I was on the stage afterwards where everyone's like receiving the award and getting the pictures, and I came up to you, I remember, I was like, yo, I don't have much time here, I know, but what's your email? I'm gonna write it down right now, and I'm gonna send you a pitch you can't refuse. And that was actually how, and then you like never replied, but rightfully so. I didn't really have as much I'm doing. You did.
No, I did, yeah.
No, you definitely did.
Yeah.
It was a joke because most people don't reply. But there is one in a few of many, and if you just take 1,000 shots, like one of them is going to go in, and that's how pretty much every single person in this film was casted and produced it. The guy that really deserves all the credit, or at least most of it, is this guy named Scott Aperoni, who produced this film. And I didn't really have a mentor before this, and I just reached out to like 200 different producers in New York and around the country, and who'd won like Sundance, South by Southwest, short films of that nature. And he was one of them who was like, yo, I see something in you. And he took a chance, and he was such a major help because he was a legitimate name who could actually then pull some of these actors and then pull some of this funding, and it was just a big step in my career. And so, yeah.
So, but I think that's super important for any students that are watching tonight is, you know, even just something simple like cold emailing. I mean, you're reaching out to dozens and dozens of people. How are you able to do that, and what, 90% don't even respond? And how are you able to say, all right, fine, next one, moving on, I'm going to keep going?
Yeah, it's super shameless, I guess. No, I mean, you just have to remember, like, the person that's not responding, it's nothing personal, right? It's just like a thing of, like, they're busy, they've got things to do, and so you just keep going and hope someone resonates with the story that you're trying to tell, and that's kind of, I think it'll happen if you have a good enough pitch and you reach out to enough people.
And we were talking earlier in the week, you were saying that one thing that you feel like is really important that you're kind of trying to get better and better at, and maybe you can speak to a little bit, is when directing movies, the importance of communication. How is that kind of something that you've focused more and more on in the last couple of years?
Yeah, communication is, I think, one of the, again, I guess I'm using this term a lot, but one of the most underrated parts of filmmaking. Not just from a standpoint of, can I express my ideas to people clearly in my crew and cast and tell them what my vision is for this entire film, but also the film, the final product, like you're communicating that to an audience. So you need to make sure the emotions you're trying to tell are coming through. And so a lot of creative people, I think everyone has this kind of creative gene in them where they can think a good story in their head and they're like, oh, I know this is going to be great, but then it doesn't come out as well to other people. And I think that's like a major skill that I'm still not great at, and I'm trying to hone in on.
So what would be an example or something that you've been doing that you feel like has made you a better communicator?
One big thing is like once you're finished with a product that you think is good, then you start sending it to a ton of people. Like even just your closest friends. That's how Nothing Except Everything kind of got started, where I didn't want to show it to anyone because it was kind of embarrassing, like that whole scene, the whole car scene, which was like based off a true experience. But then like people were like, yo, this is like, I've had this happen to me before, and you have a lot of people who are saying like, this is relatable, or this is hitting, and then, or this is not hitting, and then you can kind of tweak that and make sure your idea.
It's a while people are walking out.
I had a friend who once told me when friends or colleagues, people that worked on the movie with you, give you a note, or they tell you what to change, the thing to remember is, what are they getting caught up on? What is the issue they have? Their answer is often wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, move this, change the song to this.
Right.
Probably not. But there's some issue they're having with that part of the movie that maybe you do need to address.
I completely agree with that. A lot of notes, and notes are a thing that I think everyone will experience one day in their life, and certainly I'm experiencing more of as I kind of interact with more people now in the industry. But yeah, I think, I forgot what I was going to say, but it's really important.
Yeah, no, I mean, being able to listen, work with people, the notes process is like that. It's kind of a fine art. What is something that you have learned since this has been, Darren Aronofsky reaches out to you, it's in all the major trades in Hollywood. What has it been like for you the last few months? Give us a sense. Like, you're adapting this to be a feature film. What does that mean? What does that look like for you?
It's just surreal. Like, I'm truly so grateful. I really don't think I'm that much different than anyone out here who's trying to tell a story. It's just a matter of a lot of luck, and I'm just really, really grateful for all the people that kind of supported the making of this film.
What I've learned, I've been doing, for the last 20 years I've been doing this, and I think Wesley knows this, a lot of you guys should know this, is, you have to kind of run in your lane. What you were saying earlier, I think, is right, that you have to be yourself. And throughout your career, you'll be running in your lane, and sometimes people are going to be passing you on the right. They made a better movie, they're the hot thing at that moment. Other times you're passing the people on your left, and you know what, if you worry too much, and I've done this, about your friends who are doing better, or you think too much about, oh, I'm doing better than everyone else. You get kind of lost in it all.
Yeah.
In terms of what you're actually working on and the script that you're working on, creatively, what has it been like for you?
I think the biggest difference is that it's now it's a studio film now, and so there's a lot more kind of pressure to kind of fit the film into more of what a theater film kind of is asking for. And I think Nothing Except Everything is very independent. It was all like kind of everything was kind of like what I thought was good, and now it's kind of like, oh, all these other people are telling me it's good. And at first that can be a little weird, but then you're kind of like, no, they have good intentions. And what they're trying to do is just make it more broad and accessible to more people. And I think there's a way to kind of balance that. I think one of the most famous quotes, I think, from Christopher Nolan, that obviously everyone knows him, I don't need any introduction, but he said once, like, filmmaking is almost 99% creative compromise. And I think that was a great term to use of like, when to pull back on things, and that's another thing I was going to say about the note-taking. I remember what I was going to say now, about kind of when to take notes and when to kind of, like you said, be yourself.
And, as you are kind of doing this project and adapting it to a feature film, how do you manage time? Because you're still in college, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, like, there's college, there's a Hollywood movie script. How do you go about, because I think this is true for a lot of things in life, managing your time and figuring out, okay, you know what, maybe I should get a better grade in this subject this semester, but then you're also like trying to get through page 85 that night.
Yeah, I think that's something that I struggled with in high school as well, because like I taught chess lessons to fund this movie, and that was basically a part-time job. And so it kind of took a lot of time to do both of those things at once with schoolwork. And so I don't know, it's a constant struggle. I don't really have an answer for it. I think just knowing what to prioritize for me right now, like I'm not taking that difficult classes at college right now, and so
I'm not taking, your parents are here, right? So you're not taking difficult classes.
No, I am. I'm taking very, very difficult classes, actually.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's been, I think, just kind of knowing when to lay back on things.
We talked earlier this week, like I said, about the work ethic. The other thing too, I mean, in the 5 minutes we've been here, you've already had 2 quotes from other filmmakers. Talk a little bit about the time that you put into the craft. It's not just showing up and trying, it's actual, you tell me, but watching other films, going on YouTube and watching things. There's a constant learning process that you're undertaking. Is that right?
Yeah, so I never went to film school, I think, but which is, you don't need to not go to film school, which I think is a lot of people are like, oh, film school's worthless, whatever, but I think it's for different people, and one of the main things is that there's so many resources on the internet that you guys can just use, and I'm sure everyone kind of does that now, but yeah, for me that was my home growing up, of just like YouTube and DIY stuff of how to shoot movies, and I would say the biggest thing is just going out and doing it and just making stuff, and the more you make, the better you'll get at it. And to put another filmmaker, Stanley Kubrick, he said, or actually Quentin Tarantino said, his film school was just going to film, straight there, and so...
just like watching films, or you mean just go and make films?
Just going and make films. But I think watching films, any filmmaker obviously has so many inspirations, and so that's one thing for me, I guess, as well, where I just binge watch tons of movies, of just trying to get my craft up, learning from other filmmakers.
Yeah, I've always said, like, you could talk to 10 different successful filmmakers, and they'll give you 10 different paths. Oh, I went to college, I went to graduate school, oh, I didn't do anything, I dropped out of middle school. It's like there's a wide range of can you drop out of middle school? Yeah. In terms of, like, I think it's important, you talked earlier about trying to find your voice, and it sounds like there was a teacher that encouraged you to do that. What are the stories that you want to tell? It's easy to get kind of lost in this one moment, in this one movie, but what are the things that you do want to, the stories that you do want to tell, the messages that you want to get out there?
Well, yeah, it's super broad, I guess, and also unpredictable. I don't know, sometimes something strikes me, like Nothing Except Everything is just based off like real life high school experiences of just being in high school and graduating. But I think sometimes it's other times like a news story I just see in the New York Times or something. I'm like, I want to make a story about that. And so I just think inspiration can kind of come from anywhere.
And when you were sitting here just two years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago. What's something maybe you wish you had heard that you had known only a couple years ago that may have been, helpful in some regard?
That's so tough. I don't know. I think probably, again, this is another cliche, but just believing in yourself more. I think it's a constant push and pull of like just being pushed over by other people that are more powerful than you in the industry maybe, and that are telling you like this is what you should do, or other people who are just critiquing your movies and just being like this is not how a movie should go. And sometimes you just have to really just stick to your vision, because if you don't stick to your vision and try to pander to everyone, it's probably not going to work for anyone. So I think you just have to have a very, very specific vision and stick to that.
In terms of vision, like you're talking about, what are there one or two filmmakers specifically that have kind of strike a chord with you and continue to do so?
Yeah, for sure. Filmmaking was how I kind of fell in love with movies, of just watching movies. And so I'd say David Lynch was the big one, just to see how like kind of subconscious he kind of taps into, of just like nothing really makes sense that you're watching, but then all of it kind of feels right. And that's something I kind of wanted to imitate in Nothing Except Everything. And
interesting. Yeah, I can see that. That makes total sense.
Yeah, of just like a lot of moving images that are kind of experimental in a way, but kind of support this feeling that I think I got when I watched, for example, Mulholland Drive. I just couldn't sleep at night. It was just a crazy, crazy experience, and I think that's underrated, and I think we'll see more of it in film.
And in terms of, I think a lot of times we get lost, at least I think, the answers when we're making movies are oftentimes right in front of us. I think, this is my opinion, I make mistakes when I'm making a movie where I start to make it almost too complicated. I overthink things. Oh, wait, maybe I should do that. And I'm like, no, it's right there. This is what you gotta do. What are some of you were talking about like doing it yourself and going out and making movies. What are some of those practical elements that you think are helpful when young people, whomever, first-time filmmakers are going out and trying to really, like, I want to just go and make something. Maybe it's not the best, I need to go make something. What would be your suggestions?
I heard this quote the other day, and I guess, so I can't really speak that it's worked on me yet, but I think it's going to work, where it's like this idea of that the brain kind of works in two different ways, of creating and analyzing. And I think those are two separate parts, that you should kind of work in one first, create first, and then analyze and edit. Because when you're creating and trying to analyze whatever you're making at the same time, it just creates way too much self-doubt, and you're never going to really get anything done when you're just like, oh, this is terrible, I'm scrapping this. And that's kind of what's happening in my script right now. And so I think it's something that's really important to just really just create and then do the shit talking when it happens.
And when you're creating and you're making this film, let's say, oftentimes, I don't know if people always realize the importance of the edit. I've always said, like, editing is, a great editor is like a great chef. You give a great chef kind of a combination of bad foods, they can still make something. You give a bad chef like myself a bunch of great stuff, they'll still screw it up. Talk about the importance of editing.
I think editing is as important as every other process in the film, for sure. It's kind of, for me at least, for Nothing Except Everything, a really important thing was having the edit in mind before I even shot it, before I even wrote it. While I was writing it, I knew kind of the pieces of music that were going to be played. And so, I'd say it's really important.
All right, last question. What is one thing that you feel like, we talked about work ethic, we talked about being able to do it yourself, we talked about studying other filmmakers. If there was something that you feel like has made the biggest difference when you're really in the weeds and you're struggling and you're sweating it out and the actor doesn't like you and the producer's telling you you're over budget, what's something that kind of grounds you and helps you kind of get through that?
Oh geez, I guess it's I wrote this in my college essay actually, of ignorance. I guess it comes down to the word, which is ignorance.
Ignorance.
Yeah, of just being, not being smart enough to tell yourself to stop, and so you have to keep going, and then you finish it. David Fincher, oh my god, I hate that.
No, I think it's awesome, dude.
No. But David Fincher once said, you never really know filmmaking until you've got 5 shots to make before sunset, and it's like 2 minutes before. And so it's the idea of just, Yeah, just having that grit to go out and do it. And I think everyone at the end of the day is an independent filmmaker. They're really just trying to sell themselves and sell their vision.
Wesley, man, congratulations. I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad we've gotten the chance to meet, that you're doing what you're doing.